This evening, one new cabinet minister, the Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander, is reported to have told the Prime Minister it is time to set out a timetable to depart. Whatever happens next, the Makerfield result itself was certainly decisive. Andy Burnham increased Labour's majority, winning a resounding 55% of the vote, well ahead of Reform UK's Rob Kenyon on 35% and leaving the other parties trailing far behind. In our first report tonight, here's our political editor, Gary Gibbon.
One Andy Burnham supporter this morning wasn't waiting for the handover of power. Andy Burnham said the message from voters in Makerfield was they'd give Labour one more chance. He believes that can only happen with him as Prime Minister.
This now is the change moment. We have an opportunity to turn the tide, to make the country feel like it's working again, to make people see that politics can make a positive difference, to make people feel hope again.
Yeah, go on then.
It was left to one of his loyal lieutenants, the former Transport Secretary, let go by Keir Starmer a few months into office, to spell out the plan a little more directly to the Prime Minister.
I hope that Keir Starmer reflects on this, on the victory today and the resounding message from the people of Makerfield and thinks very deeply about what's in the best interests of the country and the party.
The Prime Minister saying that he's going to fight that challenge all the way. Is that dangerously divisive?
I think a leadership contest is not in the best interests of the country, the government or the Labour Party, and I hope Keir Starmer reflects very deeply on that.
Andy is surprised by how much you won by.
Andy Burnham scampered away from journalists trying to ask questions. Keir Starmer is still insisting he won't just fold up his tent and surrender office. If Andy Burnham wants it, he must challenge for it.
Do you still plan to take part in the imminent leadership contest?
Well, there isn't a leadership contest.
But when there is,
at the
it's imminent,
moment,
Prime Minister,
there
isn't
isn't
it?
one at the moment. But as I've said on many occasions, I don't think that's a good thing for the country. But if there is a contest, just to be clear with you, then yes, I will run, I will stand, and I've said repeatedly, I'm not going to walk away from that.
Back at the shadow government taking shape in Makerfield, they were unimpressed.
I think it's more about how we take forward this message and this style of politics into Westminster.
Well, Keir Starmer said that he's going to fight the leadership challenge, so it doesn't look like there's going to be a contest. Could that be dangerously divisive?
I mean, potentially, but Keir Starmer says a lot of things, and that's part of the issue he's got.
Tonight, the Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander, has told the Prime Minister it's time to step aside, adding to the list of those who were in the Cabinet at the time of the May local elections and are believed to have told Keir Starmer he should prepare to leave. Two of them have since quit. The Prime Minister is still insisting he will not just walk away.
I was elected here to serve my country with a mandate that we secured at a general election 2 years ago, a very considerable mandate for change. We are carrying out that change.
Both camps have been canvassing backbenchers. Today, some who backed Keir Starmer as recently as only a few weeks ago turned on their leader.
I was happy to support him when the competition didn't look so good, but it looks a lot better now, frankly. And I think that I reflect what a lot of my colleagues are thinking. This is very sad for Keir Starmer. He's a good man, and in many ways he's done a fantastic job. But the public hasn't bought into that, and the anger on the doorstep against Keir Starmer personally means that I don't think there's any way back for him, sadly. But Burnham has proved himself to be somebody that people trust.
Compared how parties contesting Makerfield in the general election fared, Labour has upped its vote. That doesn't normally happen for a party in government. Reform are up slightly, others squeezed right down and losing their deposits. Compared to Labour's disastrous local election results only last month, when Reform won almost every single seat in the area, Labour is up massively, and the Reform vote fell back badly. Votes for the other parties, again, went elsewhere.
Andy Burnham has provided as much evidence as any Labour MP could expect, and probably a bit more, about his ability to be able to challenge reform and hold out the prospect of being able to restore Labour's ability to meet the challenge that Nigel Farage undoubtedly poses to the party in terms of seats.
Inside Reform, a pained post-mortem has started on how they cope with a far-right challenger party, Restore taking some support, and with anti-reform tactical voting. But party insists their main problem in Makerfield was Andy Burnham stealing their anti-Keir Starmer lines.
The size of his victory is a reinforcement that people want this Prime Minister gone. We had our own reform voters say, actually, in order to guarantee to get rid of Keir Starmer, they were going to vote through gritted teeth for Andy Burnham.
At the declaration last night, Andy Burnham suddenly realised he'd turned up without the final draft of his speech in his pocket. Some worry there's nothing like a plan ready for taking over in government, but his policy team have been accelerating their work throughout the by-election.
You're working on a place agenda for government. How's that going?
Well, listen, one step at a time. For me, it's really important that a politician like Andy is now in national politics. I think he brings a lot of experience from Greater Manchester.
Everyone knows that politics isn't working. Everyone can feel that the country isn't where it should be. Tonight just could, be the turning point. From here on, I will give everything I have got to make it so.
Andy Burnham is now in a standoff with the Prime Minister. Few think he'll lose it.
How are you feeling?
I'm going to go and have a pint is what I'm going to do. So that's.
But keeping things as civil as possible, avoiding a political street brawl, is the immediate mighty challenge.
And Gary's with me here. What's going on tonight?
Well, the Prime Minister has been talking to Cabinet Ministers. We've mentioned there Heidi Alexander. Johnny Reynolds, the Chief Whip, has spoken to him. As I understand it, not for the first time, he's told him he needs to sort out a timetable for his departure. I'm told some of those conversations could carry on into the weekend. There has been real anguish in that building. At one meeting with members of his team, I'm told Keir Starmer got so angry at one point recently with the Andy Burnham challenge that he said that he might consider resigning his seat in Parliament, creating a by-election at the very same time as he left here, which would make an awkward opening for the Andy Burnham administration that could be coming our way. I'm not saying that's where he is now, but it's a sign of the mood that there has been in that building, as they have tried to throw off the parapets, as it were, missile after missile at Andy Burnham, and they seem to have missed their target. Earlier this week at the G7 summit, when Keir Starmer was talking about offering him a job, that wasn't really a job offer. It was meant to sort of tarnish him. It was meant to make Andy Burnham look churlish because he wasn't going to accept it. Today, talking about dereliction of duty, if he doesn't immediately focus on the by-election that now happens for Greater Manchester Mayor, again, it sort of missed its target. It didn't really land. And because Andy Burnham has won so big, Labour MPs are dazzled by the idea that parliamentary careers they thought were coming to an end might actually have another life. It feels tonight as though Andy Burnham is in touching distance of a coronation. It was 4 years ago, the last Prime Minister but three, how times move fast at the moment, Boris Johnson, stood there and talked about the herd mentality in Westminster. When the herd moves, it moves, he says. Well, I think in there they can hear the rumbling of a herd moving.
Thanks, Gary. Well, I've been discussing some of these things with the Environment Secretary, Cabinet Minister Emma Reynolds. And I put to her that all this talk of coming together might actually mean coming together under a new leader.
Look, there isn't a leadership contest. There could be one, and there are rules around how such a contest would be triggered. But I hope that we can use all the talents of our party and do that as a movement coming together. I think Andy Burnham is a great talent. He's a great communicator. He's been a fantastic mayor of Manchester.
Right, but if the Prime Minister asks you whether he has your support, what are you going to say?
I support the Prime Minister. He was elected less than 2 years ago to lead the government. I don't want to see a leadership contest.
And if Andy Burnham asks you if he has your support, what are you going to say?
Well, as I said, I support the Prime Minister. He's the leader of our party. If there was a different Prime Minister, I've been in opposition for nearly 10 years and then I was out of office. I lost my seat in 2019. But any day in government is better than any day in opposition. And so, you know, I would serve another leader of our party. Of course I would, but there isn't one. Keir Starmer is the leader of our party and I'm supportive of him.
I mean, you sound, you know, quite open to the idea of whatever may come. It's not absolute,
well,
you know, Keir Starmer must be the Prime Minister forever.
We've got to see what happens. I would prefer for us not to fight amongst ourselves, because I think that is doing the job of the opposition for them, and I think it is a gift to people like Nigel Farage and the Conservatives if we were to do that.
Why do you think Andy Burnham was able to do in Makerfield what Keir Starmer was unable to do just a month early in terms of beating reform? You know, what has Andy Burnham got that Keir Starmer hasn't?
I've knocked doors in many a by-election, and I've never knocked doors in such a by-election as this one. Andy Burnham is extremely high profile. He was a popular mayor of Manchester. He's been doing that job for 9 years. I think it was a stunning victory for Andy Burnham and the Labour Party.
I mean, do you recognise that the current situation is not tenable? You know, that it is very difficult for the Prime Minister to be going to international meetings to do negotiations with the EU and other international partners when, you know, there's a question mark over his future?
Well, look, I want there to be stability in our government. I want there to be focus on the things that we need to change to make people's lives better in this country. I recognise that all of what we've been talking about is a distraction from that, and I recognise that there may be things that develop in the coming days. I'm not under any illusion about that.
When Andy Burnham stands up today and says, you know, he wants change, is he right?
I think Andy Burnham is right to want to deliver change. To be honest, I don't think, you know, people talk about the differences between Keir Starmer and Andy Burnham. I think they actually agree on a lot when it comes to policy, on what the main focus of the government should be. There's much more similarity between those two positions that people would have you believe.
To be clear, if there is a leadership election in which Andy Burnham and Keir Starmer is the choice, who are you going to vote for?
Well, there isn't a leadership election, but as I've said, I'm loyal to the Prime Minister.
But I'm sure your constituents want to know what side you're on. You know, in that choice.
Well, look, there isn't a leadership.
I mean, in the real world, there is.
I'm loyal. There is a choice, as you know. I am loyal to the Prime Minister. He asked me to serve in his cabinet, which I am doing to the best of my ability. There isn't a leadership contest. If
Keir Starmer were to conclude, after listening to all of your cabinet colleagues, that the right thing to do is to step down, would you understand that?
Well, with respect, Krishnan, he hasn't concluded that. I'm not going to comment on what is a completely hypothetical situation.
Emma Reynolds, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, the Labour MP, Luke Charters, was at this morning's rally with Andy Burnham, and he joins us now from York. Do you think the Cabinet is stepping up to the moment?
Well, good evening. I mean, may I just take you back one step behind that, which is to the count and that seismic result that we got. Andy really moved political mountains, and he brought hope back to the party with a simple formula, a blueprint that we can indeed beat reform. Look, we're all reflecting on that colossal result. This should have been somewhere that we weren't winning. The local results just in May proved that reform would have had a colossal majority of 8,000. That's been flipped on its head, and Andy's positive campaign against that of toxicity from reform, and that's what's gone and done the job.
Right, but now he wants to be Prime Minister, and he hasn't laid out his stall. And if you all get your way, he could effectively be Prime Minister by next week. And none of us know really what he wants to do differently.
Well, Andy's connected to the working class families in Makerfield in a way I've not seen in the Labour Party for quite some time, and that's absolutely welcome. And one of the things he started to do today was set out what is, in effect, a really compelling story about reindustrialising the North, bringing power back to places like Makerfield that, frankly, have been left behind by Westminster for too long. I don't want to point fingers at the Conservatives, but
that's rhetoric, isn't it? You need a plan to go with rhetoric.
Well, these are the ideas that Andy has been delivering as Greater Manchester Mayor. He's got that track record on things like, if he wants to roll out good vocational skills and pathways for opportunities across Britain, well, he can draw on that experience, can't he, of implementing things like the Manchester Baccalaureate. So he's always been clear. He wants to take what he's achieved in the Greater Manchester area and roll it out to Britain. And I think it's that compelling story about how he fixes this political and economic broken Westminster model that he can take forward in the coming weeks.
So what do you want the Prime Minister to do? And are you going to ring him up and tell him?
Well, I think he's doing a bit of careful reflection this weekend. I think even within those hours at the count, Krishnan, if I can be so candid, that size of the victory that we had, it did take us a little bit by surprise just how powerful and colossal it was. I think this really is an era-defining moment for politics. By-elections like that don't come around very often. So those political tremors have been felt right across the PLP, and I've had some brilliant conversations with colleagues left, right, north, south today who are reflecting very deeply about how we go forward.
But how do you want it actually to work? What do you want him to step down next week, in September? What do you want the mechanism, the sequencing to be?
I think that Makerfield result, it was a bugle call that the people of Makerfield want change in the Labour Party. And I'm just hoping that in number 10, in Chequers, wherever the Prime Minister might be, that this weekend you can just take a little bit of time to reflect on that. Yeah. Makerfield's not somewhere that we should be.
I mean, you said that a couple of times now. I mean, what do you actually want him to do? Do you want him to resign on Monday? Do you want him to say, I will go in a couple of months' time? How do you want it to work?
Well, I think the PM staying is unsustainable, isn't it? I think his brand has fallen away with the electorate. You just look to some of our recent electoral results, and this is a defining result of our moment. So I think the PM should reflect on his position, because the people of Makerfield have said, Andy Burnham, he's someone that can get your mojo back as a Labour Party.
You're not really answering my question.
Well, I think he should reflect on his position, yeah. That's exactly what I feel.
OK, well, a lot of reflection going on. Our political editor was saying that there is talk that Keir Starmer has even suggested he could resign his seat as an MP and provoke a by-election, within the first 3 or 4 weeks of an Andy Burnham or whoever else administration. How would you feel about that?
Well, I would hope that wasn't the case, just speaking from my personal perspective. I think, the Prime Minister's made a lot of good calls on things like Iran and so on and so forth, so I think he should stay in Parliament. But look, we're going to have a new Member of Parliament for Makerfield coming on Monday. He's going to be getting to work for the good people of Makerfield. And I just think the message from Andy's rally today was that hope triumphs over division, and that he's a real voice for left-behind communities like Makerfield.
If Keir Starmer does what he has said he will do, which is not resign and say, OK, there's a mechanism, you can challenge me, bring forward all the people who want to back you in the Parliamentary Labour Party, do you want to see Andy Burnham lay down that challenge next week?
Well, I really hope that we can have just a sort of a calm and measured way of tackling this as a party. I think the question for the Prime Minister won't suddenly go away. So I hope he takes that decision himself. Look, I think we've been in a difficult place for the last few months. Many decisions in government have stalled. I think we've faced a lack of boldness, and the government's been too timid on a lot of policy areas. I think Andy can reinvigorate the party. He's united left and right coalitions in Makerfield, and I think he can do that in the PLP as well.
Luke Charters, thank you very much. So what was it like for Makerfield's voters to be in the midst of a political goldfish bowl where every opinion writer and broadcaster in the country had something deeply profound to say? Our North of England correspondent Claire Fallon has been finding out.
In this by-election like no other, one of them was going to win. And in Ashton in Makerfield, the town that's been campaign circus central for the last 5 weeks. How else to mark Andy Burnham's win than with a by-election cake? Does he feel like the King of the North to you today?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
We'd like to hope so.
We'd like to hope so. He needs to live up to the name, doesn't he?
There has been a buzz. Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting to see what is going to happen now. That's the thing for us.
Do you think Andy Burnham will manage to do everything that he says he wants to do?
I hope so. We just hope that whatever he's wanting to do for Ashton is good for us, because we're struggling at the moment as a business, as independents.
With plenty of competition for the strangest campaign occurrence, there's been Carol Vorderman's intervention and Andy Burnham's running shorts getting many mentions. So right back at the start, we beelined for this running club. It is increasingly over the next few weeks going to become a bit of a circus.
Well, it's already a circus because, all the clowns have arrived, so,
It's just how it is, isn't it? And we've never been on the map before. This is not a town that's done anything, really. I think the only famous person we've had is Kim Marsh.
And as the Makerfield constituency became the political epicentre, last night at the Count, at times it felt like a festival of the surreal.
And he's got a smile, hasn't he? He's got a bit of a cheeky, chappy vibe. He loves a jog. The shorts are a little bit on the short side, for my liking, but we could do something about that. And maybe he'll make a better fist of being Prime Minister than poor old Keir Starmer.
Once the by-election bandwagon leaves...
It's all done and gone now.
You'll be glad to see the back of
I
us,
will,
won't you?
all the canvassing. Yeah, it's done.
For people here, life goes on. What do you want him to do if he does become PM?
Sort out the cost of living and things like that.
With Andy Burnham making bold claims about change, both to those who backed him and those who didn't.
What's Andy going to do for us now? He's more interested in Parliament and what goes on there.
Well, he's one of us. He lives up here and that. I think he will be better for us. Reformer a little bit too radical for me.
It is a different kind of radical, though, and a new way of doing politics that Andy Burnham's promising.
Well, look, what he's saying is a solution, which I'm going to change things. This is Labour's last chance. I've got to change things. How many times have you heard that?
You've listened to his speech.
Of course I've listened to his speech. It sounds very good. Let's see what the actions are like. Talk is cheap.
After a momentous win in a by-election that showed Brand Burnham can be a reform-beating force, his sights are clearly set on Downing Street. But Andy Burnham has some big promises to keep.
Well, the Tories have been celebrating winning their first Scottish by-election for more than 50 years. In Aberdeen South, Conservative Douglas Lumsden picked up just short of 50% of the vote, well ahead of the SNP's Richard Thompson on 28.6%. Reform was a distant third. This represented a big swing from the last general election from the SNP to the Conservatives. In Arbroath and Broughty Ferry, Lara Bird held the seat for the SNP with 41% of the vote, with the Conservatives second on 19, just ahead of Reform. That was very similar to the result in 2024. Our Scotland correspondent, Catherine Sampson, reports.
Grins all round in the Granite City as Kemi Badenoch raced north to celebrate the unexpected scale of her party's victory in Aberdeen South.
My goodness.
In Scotland's energy capital, the Tories went to town, toppling the SNP into a distant second place, taking half the votes.
This was a referendum on oil and gas. They want to see drilling in the North Sea. They want to champion our oil and gas sector, and they want the Conservatives to do that.
The Conservatives haven't gained a Westminster seat in a Scottish by-election since 1967, when Esmond Wright won Pollock from Labour in the Summer of Love. There wasn't much love for Labour in Aberdeen South last night, though. The party finished fourth under Reform and only just saved its deposit. In a city suffering from job losses caused by the steady decline of offshore drilling, the Conservatives threw everything into campaigning hard against Ed Miliband's commitment to a net zero agenda and the SNP's stance on new oil and gas, which critics say lacks clarity. This was Stephen Flynn's seat. The former SNP Westminster leader stood down to pursue his career in the Scottish Parliament. He's always had a different stance on oil and gas to some of his more urban colleagues who are more aligned with a green agenda. He took to social media with a pointed message about his party's campaign, saying a tough night in Aberdeen that some will need to reflect on quite heavily. In the city centre, few had missed the message being sent by today's results.
Obviously a huge area for oil and gas and a lot of jobs going because of what's going on with Miliband, so Yeah.
Obviously, the message to Labour then, as well as to the SNP.
Yeah, because a lot of SNP don't have such a strong oil and gas stance as Steve Quinn did. Because that's why they've lost maybe 7,000 odd votes they lost this by-election.
Though some were disappointed.
Why would you do that to yourself? Like, honestly, what would you possibly think would go so well? After everything we've been through with them, was that the right idea?
John Swinney will be relieved his party held on to the Arbroath and Broughty ferry seat that was also in play last night, especially in the wake of the Peter Murrell embezzlement scandal. But the scale of his defeat in Aberdeen is a serious blow.
I congratulate the Conservatives on their success in Aberdeen South, but clearly we as a party have got to consider the implications of that as we take forward our priorities within government.
This was a unique result for the Conservatives in a unique set of circumstances. But this time, in Aberdeen, tough campaigning and tactical voting did turn the tide. While Makerfield sent a message, and though much more under the radar, Aberdeen South sent a very strong message too. The message is the city is angry. It's angry about job losses. It's angry about that policy being set in Westminster, but angry too at what many describe as fence sitting from the SNP on oil and gas. The Scottish Conservatives are clearly over the moon with this result, not least because they managed to push down reform. In some ways, you could look at this seat as a bit of a missed opportunity for reform with their drill, baby, drill message. Some said to me that perhaps that party's attentions were too focused on the Makerfield campaign instead. What will be interesting to see now is where this goes for the SNP. Already today we've seen some signs of internal division breaking through. So Stephen Flynn posts on social media saying some should reflect on oil and gas policy. He was quickly rebuked by a former advisor to John Swinney, who suggested perhaps Mr Flynn should reflect on why he vacated this seat so quickly to pursue his own career ambitions. It is, of course, widely rumoured that Stephen Flynn fancies a stab at the leadership. If that were to happen, I think you could expect to see a much swifter shift away from the oil and gas stance that was set originally by Nicola Sturgeon.
Catherine Sampson. Well, joining me now is Tim Montgomery, former editor of Conservative Home, who has now joined Reform UK. How critical a moment do you think this is for Reform, Tim Montgomery? I mean, that's a series of by-elections that they have failed to win. I mean, some pollsters are saying this is sort of the worst night for the party since the 2024 election, squeezed on the right, and now facing a Labour leader who can take them on.
Well, look, it wasn't obviously the night that we hoped for. I think we hoped to do better in Makerfield. But Reform has been written off on many occasions before, and certainly even before the local elections, where we just scored nearly 1,500 gains. People were saying our opinion poll position was falling, and actually we achieved incredible results, much more of a increase in our support than any political party had achieved in history before in terms of percentages. So one thing we do know, Christian, is politics is volatile at the moment. Anything can happen. And while Andy Burnham, I think, probably has more communication skills than Keir Starmer, he probably may be more popular on a personal level, I think we're also seeing signs that he's going to take the Labour Party in a much more left-wing direction. And if he takes the Labour Party in a different direction on issues like tax and so on, that creates a different kind of opportunity for reform.
Right, but how comfortable are you with what's happening on the right, with the challenge from Restore and the possibility that that's pushing Reform or Reform candidates into saying, more extreme things, while the Conservatives seem to be in something of a resurgence? Kemi Badenoch doing very well personally. Are you sure people like you have taken the right decision in abandoning the Conservatives and going to Reform?
Look, the Conservatives got 2% in Makerfield last night. At the 2019 election, they were on about 35%. There's vast parts of the country where the Conservative Party is making no progress at all. Look, it wasn't an ideal result, but actually, if you look what Restore achieved, their percentage of the vote was actually less than the BNP received in that seat a few years ago. They got a lot less than they were hoped for. Now, the real crisis for Reform tonight would have been if Restore really had surged, then Nigel Farage would have been facing a two-way battle. He would have had to be worried about his right flank and to deal with what is Reform's main problem, which is tactical voting by moderate people against Reform. That's Reform's #1 challenge. Having kept Restore in their box, which I think is what effectively we have done in Makerfield, Nigel Farage now has the opportunity, which he must use every day of the next 2 or 3 years until the general election, to deal with, which is to reassure people who, for example, believe in our policy on deporting illegal immigrants, that policy is in the hands of reasonable people. People will support a policy, but Reform's policy is very popular, but the doubts that people have in their minds is, can you actually trust the individual Reform politicians to deliver these policies fairly? That's what we need to do in the time that we have.
Right, so are you basically saying sort of don't worry about Restore, just write it off? Because if Restore can do what they did in Makerfield and get 6, 7, 8%, in different seats across the country, that could cause you real problems, surely.
It could, but Restore threw everything at Makerfield. They had about 1,000 activists, I think, in the constituency at the weekend, and actually they could only get 7% in a by-election.
But they've got Elon Musk, and he made the difference for Trump.
And that's something, by the way, Christian, I don't think Nigel Farage gets adequate credit for. He threw Rupert Lowe out of the party because he didn't like his extreme views. He refused money from Elon Musk because he was worried about the direction that Elon Musk was going in. He keeps Tommy Robinson out of Reform because he knows he's an unacceptable face of the right. The one thing that Nigel Farage has always done, something that Jeremy Corbyn never did on the left of the British politics, is he polices the party, sometimes perhaps too slowly. Some people I wouldn't support last in the party too long. But Nigel Farage does the right thing on these questions. Rupert Lowe and Restore don't do that. And I think the British people will increasingly see that, and that will give us the opportunity to unwind the tactical voting that is our #1 political problem and the #1 barrier to Reform entering government at the next election.
Tim Montgomery, thank you very much.